You're sharing wisdom every time you play with your horse. They're sharing it with you, and you're sharing it with them. This takes a special kind of awareness, way beyond just training. In 26 years of teaching, I've learned this is my dream, to help students connect with wisdom. This is available to all of us. Join Brigid Pajunen, your host. She's mentoring here at Solstice Ranch, and she's going to connect with students from around the U.S. and share their journey, their experiences, and their learnings, their deep wisdom from their journey with their horse. I'm Amy Brimhall McCord, founder of Inspirational Horse. Enjoy.
Okay, well, hello. And how about, would you mind just introducing yourself and telling me how long you've known Amy and how long you've had horses?
Oh, hi, I'm Varuna, and I have had horses for a while now. I grew up in Germany and I started riding when I was 10 years old. And horses have been a huge passion of mine ever since I was really little. And growing up in a large urban area, there was not a lot of access to horses. And however, I ended up in Montana and I met Amy a long time ago. I was trying to figure out, how many years I've known her, but I've been taking lessons from her when she was like really young. So I
Oh,
don't know, some
fantastic.
yeah.
Fantastic.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. And how many horses do you have?
Right now I have um four horses and they're all like very elderly
Mhm.
and are living out their life on our property.
Oh,
And then I have one horse that's fairly new to me that I'm working with right now.
lovely. Wonderful. With this a series that Amy has asked me to do with some of her longtime students, she's calling it Sharing Wisdom. So I don't know if you heard the question that I'd asked you, and just responding to the fact that Amy is wanting these to be sort of shared wisdom sessions with some of her longstanding students. And she was curious to know what lessons you feel your horses have taught you.
Well, I think probably the most important lesson is to be loving, kind, and gentle to myself. And, I just think horses are just so amazing at just holding the space for us and just being there with all of our stuff and just, holding that non-judgmental and unconditional space. And so that would probably be the number one thing is being loving, kind, and gentle to myself. And they've really taught me to return to the present moment too. And I think nowadays, with all of the added distractions of life, with these cell phones and our thoughts, and there's always so much going on. And I feel that there's just so much value in, spending time with horses and in really, grounding ourselves into our bodies and into the present moment with them.
Hmm.
And the other thing, like from just when I was younger growing up, and now looking back, just the surrender that the horses have sometimes. I was exposed to just horrific, really horrific ways of how horses had been treated and also how they were kept, that was not in the best interest of the horse. And I feel there was always such a way of how they surrendered themselves to that. And that's something that that always keeps popping back up, that surrender that the horses have kind of endured, I guess. And the other thing that I personally, I'm just fascinated with, I'm sure every little girl or every person just is so fascinated with their exuberance and their wildness and their beauty, and really how they embody all of that is just so mesmerizing and fascinating. So those are probably the life lessons that I've learned from horses. And that embodiment is like my next step that I want to kind of get to personally, of, you know, becoming more exuberant, because I think as life goes on, sometimes you kind of get a little wore down and you lose some of that spark, and the horses just have it. And
Mhm.
I just love that.
Wow. Yes. I couldn't agree with you more. That's powerful. One of the curious things to me about that is this idea of surrender, because I think people think of when they surrender, that it's a good thing. It's like they're not trying to be controlling, maybe, or they're going with the flow more. There's kind of a spiritual sense to that surrender. And I grew up in a Christian tradition where there was a lot of this feeling, but I love the way you are putting that. I mean, horses are willing, well, willing or not, I guess that is what they do and have had to endure. I really appreciate that different perspective on what you're saying. And if I'm hearing you correctly, I mean, it's almost, would you say that that acknowledgement is acknowledge a deep sense of compassion that you have for the horse? Is that how that's grown for you? Yeah. 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 That's really amazing, Varuna. That's really amazing. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah. I think this that kind of sensing and deep feeling kind of leads to the question that Amy had for, I think most of her students are women. And I think that she was curious, as am I, about, as a woman, how is horsemanship different for you, do you think? I mean, we don't really have any good way, except that most of us have had a lot of male teachers and come up with a lot of that kind of understanding of how we were supposed to be. What is that like? How has that journey been for you?
Well, as a woman, yeah, in general, I feel, yeah, it was always very, um, growing up, it was very, male driven, very pattern driven. You need to fit into the box along with the horse of a certain way to push and drive forward and all of that. And I feel just as a woman, horses, like especially now later in life, they're really helping me get back into my body. And I think there are certain, we all have different seasons of life. And I was in, after I came into the season of motherhood, I really kind of lost a part of like that embodiment and kind of detached from really being more grounded. And I really feel that horses have such a great ability to help us come back into our bodies. So that has really helped me. And as a woman, just being in the present moment, feeling and reconnecting to my emotions has been a really, really big part too. For me personally, they just evoke these feelings in me, and they just help me, they almost help guide me to this space of, what emotions need to be looked at or what I need to work on. And I feel that they're always like pointing me towards something, whether it be something positive or negative, or, just mirroring something back to me. And I feel just especially this last year, I've grown to a place where, I think we have the tendency to always want to push away the bad stuff or the things that, or if you want to call it the shadow side or whatever it may be. And like, I'm finally getting to a space where I'm like recognizing that those are the pieces that need to be embraced just as much as the light and joyful pieces of life.
Mhm.
So I don't know if that made any sense or not.
Oh, it makes perfectly good sense. It makes perfectly good sense. I'm wondering if there is an example of a time you had with one of your horses that you could give that speaks to the way they show us, maybe what our feelings are that we might not want to address, but that definitely affect them. And I think that's why they're so good at bringing this up in this, because they feel our stuff, and if we aren't aware of it, it's confusing. So, do you have an example like that?
Oh, I feel like there are so many of them out there floating around. I'm trying to think of a specific one that would really depict that. Oh, I guess horses are really, really good at always, talking to us and guiding the way, but sometimes we don't listen
Mhm.
because maybe it's the conditioned pieces of us that are speaking louder in that moment, because it's that whisper and the gentle nudge that is, always kind of guiding us forward and saying, well, you could do it this way, but then there's something else that will just override that automatically. And if we don't pause and take the time to really connect back to ourselves, sometimes it can have
Mhm.
consequences.
Mhm.
And specifically, I have an example that is very near and dear to my heart. And I had a horse that colicked last year, and I felt like it was kept saying, well, just wait a minute, just slow down. And as I was waiting, of course, I called the vet and I got onto the slippery slope, and it just all happened way too fast. And I did not listen to my intuition, and I did not listen to the horse. And it had really big consequences, and we ended up losing the horse. But I really intuitively think that had I slowed down, had I done other things,
Mhm.
we could have probably saved her.
Mhm.
Because I did go, well, you got to go to the vet, do this, do that, and throw all of the the protocol at him, check off the list. And that was in my body, it was screaming no, and it was saying the other thing. But I let the conditioning kind of override that, if that makes any sense.
Mhm. Yeah.
So that's a pretty specific example,
Mhm.
um, which is a big one.
Right. Of
Um,
course.
as far as playing with horses and working, I don't have anything right now that pops into my mind, but I'm sure at a later time it will, that I'm happy to share.
Yeah, great. Um, do you think that horsemanship is an art? And if so, how would you describe the art of horsemanship? What does it mean to you? Are you an
Oh, the
artist
art.
in other realms of other areas of your life? Are you an artist?
Well, I wouldn't call myself an artist, but I feel that especially as women, we all have this creative force inside of us that is so important to reconnect to if we've lost it.
Mhm.
And I'm kind of in that process myself, to where, I just love colors and paint or knitting. I mean, I think anything can be art. And I absolutely think that horsemanship can be an art as well. And I think it's really the art of being in the present moment. And I'm kind of thinking that if I think of horsemanship, it's almost like that vulnerability of a woman and a horse being naked in the wilderness, kind of a thing. Just no strings attached, no no fancy clothes, no tools, no gear, because that in itself with the horse industry is such a
Mhm.
big industry, you know, of having to have all of the things to be successful and to, you know, be or do the part. So I think the more stripped down we can be and the more like really present in our awareness we can be with the horses, I think that is the art of horse, the true art of horsemanship.
That's wonderful.
That's kind of what it means to me.
That is great.
And there not being a right or wrong within the relationship either. So that, you know, each part, like the horse and the human, have a connection, and each one of us can have a voice. And that's where the magical spark, that little dance of the in-between, that's where the art unfolds in my mind.
Mm-hmm. Was it always that way for you, that it was like a conversation with horses?
No, it definitely wasn't. It was more when I was little, it was definitely a safe space for me to be with the horses. And I loved them, but it was definitely, you know, what you get taught is very much you do this, that, and the other. And it was more like doing things to the horse in order to accomplish certain goals or maneuvers. And it was always so much more about the tools and the techniques and how to get the horse to do a certain thing. But the underlying feeling, you know, during the whole time of, you know, when you would go out in nature riding, that's where the true connection always happened on the inside for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess as I get older, it just unfolds more and more how important it is to really listen to the horse.
I hear that loud and clear. You know, that being said, I think one of the tricky things for me as a human being is I have goals and ideas, and you know, that trying to maintain that listening to the horse and still, like, you know, move, I don't know, I really don't even know what to call it, move the relationship forward, you know, build more skills. It's so nebulous. And the goals and dreams that I've had have certainly changed from when I first had horses again as an adult. What about for you? What were, when you, like, do you have dreams and goals now for you and your horses? And if so, can you put them into words? Are they specific things that you want to?
No, I actually don't have any dreams or goals. I know, isn't that crazy?
No, no.
I grew up riding. So I grew up in a big city, and we had this crazy apple tree sculpture in our little apartment. And there was this branch, and my dear mother made me a sock horse, you know, kind of like a stick horse, but she stuck this sock head of a sock horse head onto this branch, and I would sit on that branch and I would ride my imaginary horse like through the beautiful meadows and the mountainous scenery. And somehow it happened that I am now living in Montana, you know, near the beautiful meadows and beautiful scenery. And I had a really wonderful job where I worked with horses for a very long time. And that was almost like my dream come true. And for right now, I really don't have any specific goals or that I'm trying to accomplish anything. It's more like cultivating a relationship with this horse that's relatively new to me. And if I had any goals, it would be more, you know, my daughter has expressed an interest in going and studying with Amy when she's older.
Oh,
And so that's kind of where, you know, I'm kind of hoping that that might be a possibility for her. And when the kids are a little older, maybe I could join her too, you know, so
okay. How old
so
are
that would
your
be
children?
my daughter is 12 and my son is 10.
Oh, fun, wonderful. It's not far from now, then they'll be
Yeah.
moving on.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exciting. I really I admire that, like the dream of being able to share something so important to you with a child or children is there's that would be a sweet bond.
Yeah,
Mm,
definitely.
that's great. Um, there's so much in here that I'd love to open up more to. You know, when you were talking about how you were as a child and then with horses and then riding through the meadow and just, you know, feeling that connection, and then of course taking formal training and then studying with Amy all these years. What are there and maybe you study with other people, I don't know, but are there specific things that Amy has offered you that you can talk about a little bit? What kinds of unique ways does she offer you to expand your understanding of being with horses the way you dreamed of as a girl?
Well, I think Amy is number one, an incredible teacher. She is so present and aware. Like, I really feel like nothing gets by her. She is so, any clinic I've ever taken from her, she just holds the space so beautifully for every individual and every horse. And as far as specifics go, it's just, I feel the way she really carries herself, the way she embodies who she is as a person, speaks volumes. I'm always the emotional one. No, but really, like, there are not many people who conduct themselves in such a self-honoring way, but in the way she honors herself, she honors everybody else as well. And of course, including the horses. And probably one of the most amazing things about her is that she, you know, she never takes a horse away from you and says, well, let me fix that. I can show you how it's done. And I think there's so many trainers out there, you know, who can throw all the techniques at a horse. And I know that Amy has a lot of techniques up her sleeve too, but she is able to really help people connect to their horse. And she, like no other person, can hold that space for humans and horses together as they move through a certain challenge or a difficulty and come out the other side of it. And I don't know if you're looking for like hard on like specific examples, but I think the overall feeling of Amy and her teachings is just, she is one of a kind when it comes to just really holding the space and helping people experiencing a breakthrough with their horse. And it's just an amazing and beautiful thing. And trying to think, I think I had so many more things I wanted to touch on, but they just escaped me. Yeah, I guess just the way she, oh yeah, I remember now. So what I wanted to say was, so when I entered motherhood, I had at this same time, I lost my horse that I had been working with Amy. And so it was almost like a natural transition for me, like not working with the horses for a while. And I would come with my babies to her clinics, every once in a while and spend a couple of days just to kind of say hi to the other participants and to see what, Amy was doing. And she was always growing and always doing so many things and that were new and different. And I feel like her own growth journey and having witnessed that, how far she has come and how she has always carried herself with so much integrity is just so amazing. And when I kind of, now the kids are older, when I kind of circled back in and spent more time auditing some of her clinics, I could just see the progress in all those people that have been with her during that time when I left and I was not present with her anymore. And she has really taught these people how to embody their self-carriage and how they interact with the horses. And, they're embodying themselves in a different way. Amy is embodying Amy, but each student has their own way of really carrying themselves so differently when they play with their horses. And that is just mind-blowing to me too, that she can really teach that. And it's just so beautiful to see my peers, how far they have come too over the years. And it's just beautiful and mesmerizing. And the other thing I wanted to say was also just that Amy, she was never in my mind about the money. And at one point in time in my life, I had an opportunity to, where I was working, I said, do you want to come teach clinics over here? And it might have even been when she stepped out on her own. And she said, no, I'm not interested in that type of work. And I feel like she always knew exactly what she wanted to do and what she was going to be in support of and what was going to keep her going where she wanted to go. And that's just, again, that piece of integrity and how she holds and carries herself with so much self-honor. It's just amazing.
Again, I agree wholeheartedly. And I think one of the things that makes her such an incredible teacher, both for horses and for people, is she doesn't feel, so many of us feel compelled to make the uncomfortable comfortable, but the uncomfortable, she has such a deep understanding of how it's that uncomfortable that is where the learning comes from. Like hearkening back to what you said earlier about the shadow self, it's like, oh, well, that's actually where the growth is. It's not exactly the same, but I've seen her and I've learned repeatedly hear from her that she sets things up and allows horses and people to learn it. And when they do learn it, because they've come to it on their own through their own path, the knowledge is so much stronger than if they were just told. And that's very, very profound to me. I have felt definitely a deep change in myself and how in my body because of that, because it's not something that you can say, pick up a stick and swing it this way, and that's what I'm doing. It's like, no, that is not what is going on. So I've really enjoyed the multiple ways I've tried to mimic picking up the stick and like, well, that's all those things. Anyway, it's been wonderful. So she also had been very curious, and I'm curious because you're just such a joy to talk to. Like if you, and I do have a friend back home right now who's 51, and she just got a 3-year-old Mustang mare, and she hasn't ever really had a horse. I'm like, okay, well, interesting choice. But and she's been calling me lately, and I'm like, okay, I love to talk about horses. I'll talk about this. I don't know what I can do about it, but I'll talk about it. But Amy is wondering, like you, with all of the experience you have, if you had a friend like mine and they were going to go out and meet their horse, what would you say to them? What would be the wisdom that you would share with them about how to begin approaching that relationship?
Well, first off, I think what I found for myself right now is before I even go out to play with a horse, I try to really kind of get into my own body by, either like dancing it out or just, going for a long walk or just whatever brings you back like into your physical self versus like in your mental self. And that really has helped me personally, like go out there and be more open and like in the more listening and observant state versus, in my brain going, okay, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to catch him and I'm going to do X, Y, Z, because then it kind of becomes more like, okay, like I have an agenda, I'm going out there and I have expectations. And if those expectations don't get met, right, then the horse is already kind of behind because I think he's wrong. And so in my mind, it's just really getting into your own body, like let go of all the, mental clutter that you might be bringing into the relationship and just observe and listen and like try not to have an opinion of what is presenting itself. And that's probably, obviously a lot of Amy's teachings, that I've picked up from her is to really, having, an open heart and being curious about what they're offering and what they have to say. And then like really being deeply grateful for what they're offering instead of saying, yeah, but no, I was not looking for that. Like you're wrong, And I think if we can approach a lot of things that way, it really helps us out. And it can even be put into motherhood too, that if we approach things with so much more curiosity instead of us thinking things should need to look a certain way to be successful, then we just have a lot more ability to cultivate a deeper relationship with the horse.
Shared wisdom. Wonderful, Varuna. That's really, really wonderful.
Oh, thank you.
I know you've had a chance to contemplate this time we were going to spend together. Are there other things that you came up with that you would really like to share with Amy's students? People maybe who've never met her and wonder like, what's that like, or anything that you might want to share that we haven't covered?
I think we probably covered most of it, but I guess just the type of person Amy is and her ability, like I already said, to hold the space and to, like you said, set up these, in the clinics to have the human and the horse really go through an experience together and without like interfering. And the way I would describe it is, when you're having like an emotional moment, a lot of times people like come at you and try to give you a hug and it kind of interrupts your experience as you're letting yourself feel these emotions. I mean, this is kind of separate and aside from the horses right now, but like I feel like Amy is really great at just holding that space and letting you have that experience with your horse and coming through on the other side of it. Instead of whereas somebody else might be like, oh, we got to stop that right now and interrupt this and let's fix this over here. And so there's always like a redirect happening. And I feel that she's just exceptional at really letting people connect to that intuition inside of themselves. And like you mentioned so beautifully earlier, when it comes from within, it sticks so much better than if it's just coming at you from the outside and somebody telling you to do X, Y, Z. but you really experiencing it in your own body is where like you just can move through it and forward in such a beautiful way with the horses.
Mhm.
And really, the other thing I would, ask is take your time and always remain open and curious to what the horse has to say. There is no rush to complete something. And I think that's also part of our conditioning that we need to, just check off all the things on the list to move through and be successful.
Mm.
I think that's the main things.
Well, that's kind of a lot, Varuna. I really, really have enjoyed this. I hope at another time we get to meet in person and get to know one another. I loved the shared wisdom that you have, and yeah, I love that we share a love for horses and Amy. So there you go.
Thank you. I love that too. And I love your creative painting behind you
Oh,
there.
I am
That's-
actually in the room where it all happens here at Inspirational Horse. This is Amy's tack room.
Oh, nice.
And I believe it was
Very beautiful.
a student who painted it for her. Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah, it's really, really a beautiful, beautiful piece. Yes, Varuna, until next time, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
This was so enjoyable. We'll talk again, I hope.
Okay, sounds good.
Bye-bye.
Bye.